In the King George Hotel in Athens, I woke up with tears on my cheeks and the sound of the redbird and the chinaberry tree in my ears. The sound faded into the night noises of a city, and I knew that I had been crying about Max. Suddenly, I heard a soft rain spattering on the balcony floor, and a cool breeze came in, and I went back to sleep. In the morning, the sky was even more brilliantly blue and gold than it had been, with no heat haze and a cool breeze. Zachary called while I was having breakfast, the Fair Isle cardigan over my shoulders. He explained that we'd need to make an early start if I wanted to be back in time for dinner with Sandy and Rhea. Can you be in the lobby at 9? Sure, why not? Leave a message for your uncle and aunt that you may not be back when they arrive. When are they getting in, by the way? I'm not sure. Uncle Sandy just said in plenty of time for dinner. Okay then, he doesn't expect you to hang around. I'll have you back at the King George in good time to bathe and change. Just leave him a message. Will do. Sandy would certainly not want me to hang around. That was quite a downpour we had during the night, Zachary said. Did it wake you? I heard it. It was mixed up in my mind with the redbird and the chinaberry tree and my conversation with Rennie. But now we've got the most glorious day of all. I had carried my coffee cup from the balcony to the telephone in the bedroom and took a swallow. It was cooling off. See you at 9. The air was dry and warm when we started off in the VW bug, which was beginning to seem like a familiar friend. Zachary brought another picnic basket, not from the Hilton this time, he said, but very Greek. Cold spinach pie, feta cheese, wrinkly dark olives, salada, cucumber dip. And I got them to make me some fresh lemonade at the Hilton. I don't suppose you want to greet your uncle and aunt with wine on your breath. I'm not much of a drinker, I told him. There's a difference between having an occasional glass of wine and being an alcoholic. Of course, but I'm still a minor, in case you're forgotten, and I've seen enough of the results of the abuse of alcohol to be very wary about it. He looked at me with open curiosity. Not your parents? Heavens, no! Who? I didn't say Max. It was a while before I realized that sometimes she drank too much. She frequently switched from wine to bourbon. It's good for elderly hearts, she said. I asked Rennie if it was all right for her to drink bourbon, and he said that to an extent Max was right, that a moderate amount of whiskey actually dilated the arteries, and he added that it was a painkiller. He gave me another of Nelson's articles to read, this one way over my head, but I gathered that in the last months of the disease there is a good deal of acute pain, and the damaged heart muscle will not tolerate ordinary painkillers. One evening, when Max and I were alone at Beaulair, she talked to me about her husband. We were sitting at the table out on the veranda, and she was sipping bourbon. Only the slight flush to her cheeks made me realize that she was drinking more than usual, but there was nothing ugly about it. I married Devin Tomasi in good faith, she said. I wanted family life, wanted children, and I thought Devin and I could make it. He was the gentlest man I've ever known, and occasionally he could get through all my blocks and inhibitions, but not often. God knows it wasn't Devin's fault. There was no miracle. He was infinitely patient. And when I got pregnant, oh God, how we rejoiced. But the baby was born with the Alair wheat cart and lived only a few days. After that, it was apparent things weren't going to work out for us as husband and wife. That was my worst time after I left Devin. I fell apart in the ugliest possible way, but I met Urs and was able to be friends with Devin again. I will always love Devin in my fashion and be grateful to him. She put her hands to her cheeks and her fingers trembled. I think I want you to go home now, Polly. I'm tired. I left. It had been almost as hard as for for Max to tell me about her marriage as it had been for her to tell me about her father and M.A. I wondered when she was going to tell me that she was dying. The next time I was at Beaulaire, Ursula was there, and I managed a few minutes with her in the kitchen. Max didn't give us much time alone, basically because Max didn't want to be alone. Urs, I don't mean to pry, and I know Max doesn't want to talk about it, and nobody told me, and I mean, Rennie didn't say anything, but I guess. Ursula turned from the stone sink. Did you? I thought you might have. How much do you know? That Max has Nelson's disease, and that there's no cure. Ursula wiped her hands carefully. Oh, Polly, child, this is a lot for you to handle, and you're in too deep now for you to turn your back on Max and withdraw. Withdrawing had not occurred to me. Can't anything be done to help her? I knew the answer, but Ursula was older and more experienced than Rennie. Not much. When Bart Netson confirmed the diagnosis, I don't think she realized how much she was going to have to endure. With some people, it's just a slow wearing down of energy and then quick heart failure. It's being much slower with Max. She's very strong. The pain is bad and getting worse. Ungrateful to you, child, for all you do to help Max. You're both friend and daughter to her. Did you tell you that she and Devin had a little girl? Yes. That was a devastating blow to Maxa, seeing what appeared to be a perfect infant and then watching it wilt and die. You're Max's child, Polly, the child she couldn't have, and that's an enormous burden to put on a 16-year-old. What have we done to you, Max and I? You've made me alive, I said quickly. I worry about you. She turned back to the stone sink. I hope we're not... I hope we're not destructive to you. Constructive, I said quickly. Sandy brought me to Beaulaire to meet you. Just me, remember? He wouldn't have. If he hadn't known I needed you and Max. Bless you. Ursula refilled the kettle and put it back on the stove. Bless Sandy. Dennis, too. They're good friends. Mother went to Charleston with Ursula at last to go to the Spoleto Festival in the afternoon while Urs was consulting at Mercy Hospital, and then go out to dinner and back to the festival in the evening. She came back glowing. The following week, Max said, "It's your turn, pal. Urs had to go back to Charleston to see Ormsby. There are times I could kill your Uncle Dennis for offering Urs to him, but Urs needs the stimulation, so I'm simultaneously grateful. There's an interesting play on at the Dock Street Theater in the evening." When? Tomorrow. We've already cleared it with your parents. Urs will be getting her hair trimmed, so we'll kill two birds with one stone and get yours styled. You're not coming? Of course she wasn't coming. She wasn't up to it, and I knew it. Not this time. You go with Urs and have fun. Ursula and I stayed in the Ormsby's guest house, which was a separate building behind the house and had been the kitchen in the old days. There was a comfortable sitting room overlooking the garden, a bedroom with twin beds, a bathroom, and a tiny kitchenette so the guests could be self-sufficient. The furniture was antique and beautiful. Mrs. Ormsby was an interior decorator. Mrs. Ormsby was an interior decorator, and there was air conditioning. We said hello to Mrs. Ormsby, who was welcoming and chatty and asked about Daddy and then Uncle Dennis, and talked about getting Mother into Charleston more often, and would Ursula be interested in serving on some committees? And how is Maximiliana doing? She asked, a tentative note coming into her voice. As well as can be expected, Ursula's tone was carefully non-committal. I wish we could help, my dear, Mrs. Ormsby said. Suddenly, and for the first time, I realized that Ursula was bearing Max's death on her own shoulders, bearing it for Max as well as for herself. And I had a faint glimmer of what that death was going to mean to Ursula. Max had said that they had been together for over 30 years. That was longer than Mother and Daddy had been married. How would either of my parents feel if they were watching the other die? I couldn't quite conceive it. Now, as I watched and heard Ursula being courteous and contained, some of her pain became real to me. Mrs. Ormsby, returning to her social, light voice, told us there was iced tea in the fridge and a bottle of white wine. We thanked her and then went to the hairdresser. She could undoubtedly exorbitantly expensive. I felt a little odd having my hair styled. Kate's chestnut hair is curly, and even when she nibbles at it with the nail scissors, it looks just right. If I hack at mine with the nail scissors, it looks exactly as though I've hacked it. I've hacked at it with the nail scissors. Mother usually cuts it. Cut it short, please, I said to the stylist, as short as possible. Why so short? He asked. It's an awful color, and the shorter it is, the less of it. If I could make up a the color of your hair, half my ladies would come flocking. You have a beautiful neck. We will show off your neck to the best advantage. Kate's reaction when I came home was, golly, Polly. Zan said, gosh, Paul, what'd they do? You look almost pretty. She is pretty, Mother said. Max simply made me turn round and round, looking at me critically from every angle, nodding with satisfaction. I could hardly believe it myself. When the stylist was through with me, my straight hair actually lay in soft curves, capping my head. Ursula's hair looked nice, too. Max found Dominic for me, she said. If Max didn't see to it that I go to a good stylist, she knows I wouldn't bother. After all, a surgeon's hair is frugally concealed under a green surgical cap. When we left the hairdresser, Ursula went to the hospital and I went to the art gallery where there was an interesting exhibition of women painters. Rosa Bonheur, Bertha Morisot, Georgia O'Keeffe. O'Keeffe, 2 F's. I liked the way it looked. My parents had not objected when I put the extra L in Polly, but I doubted if they let me get away with putting an extra F in O'Keeffe. I'd gone back to the cottage to change and was delayed by Mrs. Ormsby, so I was a few minutes late and Ursula was waiting for me. She was evidently known by the people who ran the restaurant, and the waiter was smiling and respectful. We have the moules marinaires that you like, Dr. Heschel. Splendid, Francois. I think you like the way they prepare them here, Polly. Fine. She did not order wine. We had Vichy water. This place is small enough to be personal, and I've got in the habit of eating here when I'm in Charleston. Did you have a good afternoon? Terrific. It's ages since I've been in an art gallery. Sometime I'm going to take a real sabbatical, but it's been good for me to keep my hands in during all these months. Norris Ormsby called me in today on an interesting and tragic case, a young woman in her 30s who has had a series of brain tumors. Benign, in her case, is a mockery. After her first surgery, some nerves were cut, and her face was irrevocably distorted, her mouth twisted, one eye partly closed. A few days ago, another tumor was removed, and several more smaller ones were discovered. I agree with the decision not to do further surgery. She said that she is looking with her mind's eye at the tumors, willing them to shrink, seeing them shrink. And she quoted Benjamin Franklin to me, those things that hurt instruct. An extraordinary woman, a holy woman. She looks at her devastated face in the mirror and she says, she still does not recognize herself, but there's no bitterness in her. She sails, and as soon as she gets out of the hospital, she plans to sail solo to Bermuda. At sea, what she looks like is a master of complete indifference. My patients teach me, Polly. Old Ben knew what he was talking about, and it's completely counter the general thinking today, where we're taught to avoid pain and seek pleasure. Pain needs to be moved through, not avoided. Ursula was referring to her own pain, I thought, and Max's, and mine. Why is hurting part of growing up? I demanded. It's part of being human. I've been watching you move through it with amazingly mature compassion. You've been the best medicine Max could have. Well, child, it's a good thing the play is a comedy. This is more than enough heaviness. We spent two hours in the theater laughing our heads off, then back to the guest cottage. Ursula went into the main house to have a drink with the Ormsbys, and I got ready for bed and read until she came in. She took a quick shower and then got into the other twin bed, blowing me a kiss. Mwah. Sleep well, child. I've enjoyed our time together. Me too. It's been wonderful. We'll have a bite of breakfast at 7 and then drive back to the island before the heat of the day. Sleep well. You too. Thank you. Thanks, Urs. Urs wasn't Max, but she was still pretty special. Who? Zachary asked as we drove toward Mount Parnassus. Who what? I asked stupidly. Who's abused alcohol to make you so uptight about it? Zachary, I go to high school, okay? Occasionally I get invited to dances. Kids sneak in booths and drink themselves silly. You have no idea how much time I spend holding kids' heads while they whoops or mopping them up afterwards if they don't make it to the John. It's enough to make me join the WCTU. What on earth is the WCTU? I giggled. The Women's Christian Temperance Union? He didn't think it was funny. Your parents aren't tittle-tellers, are they? No, but they're moderate. Anything good can be abused. I know that from very personal experience, but I learned that I am capable of temperance, and temperance means moderation, not abstinence. Okay, I'm not arguing with you. Moderation in all things, a moderate Greek said. It was from Mac that I heard about the Greeks talking about being moderate. It was, she said, because temperamentally, they were totally immoderate. Starting a war over Helen of Troy is hardly moderate. The vast quantity of gods and goddesses isn't very moderate either. We talked comfortably over a cup of tea, Ursula making cucumber sandwiches for us, and then I sat at the table on the veranda and did my homework while Ursula sat in the white wicker swing reading a medical journal and Max sketched. When I was through, it wasn't a heavy homework night. I left my books and papers on the table and went to stand by Max, looking down at her sketchbook. A sketch of me, one of Ursula, several sketches of hands. Polly, something in her tone of voice made me stop. Urs tells me that you know. Ursula let a magazine slip off her lap onto the floor, but did not bend down to pick it up. The swing creaked noisily from its hooks to the ceiling. Yes, Max, I know. Because of Rennie, I suppose. He never talked about you. No, he wouldn't. He just talks about tropical diseases and infinitum. And you're no fool. Dear Square Rennie, I'm glad he's assisting Cousin Bart. Glad you have him for a friend. I'd hope to spare you, Polly, at least a little longer. No, I'd rather, I started, and trailed off inadequately. Not many people have the privilege of being given time to prepare for death. I can't say that I'm ready to die. I'm still in medium rest, and I have things I like to paint, things I like to do, but I'm beyond the denial and the rage. I don't like the pain. Oh, Max, I looked helplessly at Ursula. Urs glanced at Max, rose, picked up a journal, and dropped it in the swing. I'm on to the kitchen. Come and join me in a few minutes, Polly. Little one, Max said, there are worse things than dying. Losing one's sense of compassion, for instance, being inert to suffering, losing the wonder and the sadness of it all. But that's the worst death than the death of the body. I was silent, trying to push back the dark lump of tears rising in my throat. I don't know how long I have left, Max said. Bart doesn't know. I'm strong as an ox. My heart is not going to stop beating easily, but it's been an immensely interesting journey, this life, and I've been given the child of my heart to rejoice me at the end. She stood, pushing up from her seat with her hands, and I was in her arms, tears streaming down my cheeks. She wiped them with her long fingers. Dear loving little Paul, but it's better this way, isn't it? Out in the open? I nodded, pushing my fingers in my pocket to look for Kleenex. She put a handkerchief in my hand. Max, I don't want to go to Cyprus. Nonsense. Her voice was brusque. I am not going to allow my plans for the education of Polyhymnia O'Keefe to be disrupted. I wanted to ask, will you be here when I come back? I mumbled. I still don't want to go. She smiled at me. You'll go, Polly, if only for me. You won't disappoint me. Now, go help Ursula, and let's have a merry meal. I've had a rich life, Polly, and I'm grateful indeed. She gave me a gentle hug, then a small shove, and I went out to the kitchen. I could ask Urs what I couldn't ask Max. Urs, if I go to Cyprus, will Max be alive when I get back? I can't answer that, child. I don't know. There are no tidy answers to nonsense, but things are going to get better. I don't want to go. You must. You know that. Part of growing up is learning to do things you don't want to do. She looked at me gravely. Child, I promised Norris Ormsby I'd go back to Charleston next week. Just this once more. I made it clear that it's the last time. Max won't ask you to stay with her now that she knows that you know. She won't want to burden you, but I'm going to ask you to come stay with her overnight. Are you up to it? Yes, I said. It's a lot to ask of you. I know that. You don't need to ask. I want to be here. You're a strong child, Polly. It's all a front, I wanted to say, but I didn't. And I didn't mind when Ursula called me child. I'd have hated it from anyone else. She handed me a plate of cold chicken and ham. I hope you're not going to regret these months since Sandy brought you over to Baudelaire as his Christmas present to Max and me. Never, I cried. I've learned more in these past months than I've ever learned in school. I can never regret them. Never is a long word. Am I never going to see you again after I take you back to the hotel this afternoon? Zachary asked. It's been wonderful being with you, I said. I've had a marvelous time. I'll write you postcards from Cyprus. I want more than postcards. You really do something special for me, Polly. You really do. Do you honestly enjoy being with me? I wouldn't be with you if I didn't. Zachary evidently didn't even suspect that I was anything but a social success in Coopertown, and that having a young man after me was a totally new experience. Mount Parnassus isn't that far beyond Delphi, oh goddess mine, he said, but I won't trace any of our routes. Did you do your homework? Sure. In my mind's eye, I saw Max sitting with me on the veranda swing, showing me pictures and sketches, got a whiff of her perfume, of Baudelaire's flowers in the spring. Mount Parnassus is sacred to Dionysus, and the Thyiads have their Bacchic revels on one of the summits. I like to have a Bacchic revel with you. He took one hand off the steering wheel and pulled me close to him. I must have stiffened. Relax, pretty Paul. I'm not going to hurt you. I did relax during the ferry ride. We stood on deck and the light of the sun and water was so brilliant it was almost blinding. The sea was choppy, white-capped, with a high wind which drive the spray as fast as it blew up at us. To our right was a barren coast of a stony mountains with only a little scrubby-looking vegetation on the lower slopes. I wondered if it had been greener for the Dionysian revels. I could hardly imagine them on hard bare stone. The sea got choppier and choppier as we approached land, and the sky more lowering. It rained last night, Zachary said. I forbid it to rain today. But as we got back to the boat to drive off the ferry, big raindrops splattered against the windshield. Zachary swore. Then, there's a place nearby where we can have a glass of tea and see what the weather's going to do. The small restaurant he took me to was right on the shore, and we could watch the rain making pockmarks in the water. The waiter seemed sorrowful but not surprised when Zachary asked for tea and nothing else, and while we were drinking it, the skies opened and dumped quantities of water and then abruptly stopped. I have a rug for us to sit on, Zachary said. I think we could drive on and have a picnic. The sun was out, and the wet flagstones outside the restaurant were steaming. The wind was still strong, and it was a wild, warm, early afternoon of swiftly shifting clouds, which went well with the grandeur of the scenery. Zachary drove to a grove of ancient pines, from which we had a view of a crumbling temple, the stones shining and golden in the post-storm sunshine. Zachary spread a rug over the rusty needles, and we ate comfortably, protected by the trees, which swayed in the wind, sounding almost like surf. Zachary popped a wrinkled little olive into his mouth, and then lay down, looking up the blue sky through the green needles of the pines, a high burning blue with golden glints. I looked at one of the crumbling columns. It's so old. And gone, Zachary said, putting his dark head in my lap, as our own civilization will soon be gone. It's a never-ending cycle of rise and fall, except that there's a good possibility we'll end it. He spat out the olive seed. With the new microtechnology, there'll be less than a 15-second lapse between the pressing of the button and the flying of the bombs. All those bomb shelters people have built, my pile among them, will be useless. There won't be time to get to them. When it happens, it'll happen without warning. I pushed his head off my lap. Shut up! Ow! He rubbed his head and put it back in my lap. It might happen now, in the next few seconds. A light so bright we'd be blinded, and heat so intense we'd be incinerated before we realized what had happened. It wouldn't be a bad way to go here with you. I pushed at his head again, but he didn't move. It's one thing to contemplate one's mortality realistically, another to wallow in melodrama. It was almost as though the strange young man was deliberately inviting disaster. Don't be an ostrich, he said, hiding your head in the sand. I'm as realistic as you are, but it doesn't do any good to dwell on the horror. Nobody wants it, and it doesn't have to happen. Give a child matches, and sooner or later he'll light one. We had an essay contest, not just our school, but the whole state, on how to prevent nuclear warfare, and I wish the President of the United States would listen to the kids. Did you win? Zachary asked. I was a finalist. At least I was able to speak my piece. And we have to live as though there's going to be a world for us to live in. What's the point of making plans? I countered. What's the point of not making plans? We're at the end of our civilization, let's face it. Oh, Zach. Absently, I began to run my fingers through his hair. Think of all the girls who decided they knew exactly when the end of the world was coming because of the lineup of planets or some verse from Revelation and dressed up in sheets to wait on some mountaintop for Judgment Day, or had big doomsday parties and refusing to live because it wasn't worth it when the end of the world was so close, and even selling their property, and then when the world didn't end at the predicted moment, there they were. I'm not selling my property, Zachary said. You needn't worry about that. Just in case, I'll hang on to what I have. You can't take it with you. I'll keep it to the last second. I've got $5,000 in traveler's checks with me right now. I did not like this aspect of Zachary. I'm realistic enough to know the possibilities of the future, but there are some positive ones too, as I reminded Zachary. There are people like Sandy and Rhea whose work is about diametrically opposite to Zachary's father's, though I didn't mention that. A lot of doctors are refusing to take part in emergency medical disaster planning, making it clear that it's unethical to delude people into false beliefs that there are any realistic mechanisms of survival after an atomic war. More and more people are rising up against nuclear stockpiling, at home, abroad. We don't have to blow up the planet. Max said once, we do make things happen by what we think, so think positively, not negatively. When you think you're beautiful, you are beautiful. If you believe in yourself, you will do well in your life's work, whether you choose acting or writing or science. It was a warm summer evening, and we were out on the veranda upstairs off Max's room watching night fall. The sky over the ocean was rosy with afterglow, which Max said was more subtle than the sunset. The ceiling fan was whirring gently, and the purple sky above the soft rose at the horizon. A star came out, pulsing softly so that it was more like the thought of a star than a star, and then there it was, followed by more and more stars. Max pointed to the sky, the macrocosm, stars beyond countless stars, galaxies beyond galaxies. If our universe is finite, as many astrophysicists believe, there may be as many universes as there are galaxies, floating like tiny bubbles in the vastness of space. Tiny bubbles? I was sitting on a low stool at Max's feet, and she reached out her fingers and massaged the back of my neck gently. That's where I get tired when I write a lot, and I just finished my last long paper of the year for Miss Zaleski. The last time Earth and I were at your house, Rosie and Johnny were blowing bubbles, lovely little iridescent orbs floating in the breeze. And when one thinks of the macrocosm and then the microcosm, size makes never mind, as Nettie would say. She laughed gently. Is a galaxy bigger than a quark? I lean more and more on the total interdependence of all creation. If we should be so foolish as to blow this planet to bits, it would have repercussions not only in our own solar system, but in distant galaxies, or even distant universes. And if anyone dies, a tree, a planet, a human being, all of creation is shaken. How different that was from Zachary. Frightening, but in a completely different way, because it gave everything meaning. Never think what you do doesn't matter, Max said. No one is too insignificant to make a difference. Whenever you get the chance, choose life. But I don't need to tell you that. You choose life with every gesture you make. That's the first thing in you that appealed to me. You're naked with life. And wasn't that what drew me to Max? That abundant sense of life? Pointing out to me the fierce underside of a moth clinging to the screen, fireflies like a fallen galaxy on the dunes in front of our house, the incredible pulsing life of the stars blooming in the night sky, seeming to cling to the Spanish moss on the old oaks. I looked at the crumbling golden columns near Zachary's picnic spot, the chipped pediments, and thought that Max would see in them not the death of a civilization, but the life. I got up and walked slowly toward the temple, and Zachary followed me. He dropped his doom talk. When am I going to see you again? Uncle Sandy has plans to take me to various places for the rest of the week, and then I'm off to Cyprus. I like Cyprus. I'll come see you there. No, please, Zachary. I'm there to do a job, and I'm not going to have time for anything else. How long is this job? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. We reached the temple, and I sat on the still damp stone of a pediment with a lotus leaf design. Did the Greeks think of the lotus as flowering into an entire universe? Zachary counted off on his fingers. 3 weeks, okay. I may go to Turkey for a while then. How are you getting home after the conference? Cyprus Airlines to Athens, but on to JFK in New York, and then to Charleston. You changed planes in Athens? Of course. How long do you have between planes? Nearly 3 hours. I'll meet you at the airport then, and we can have a bite together and a chance to catch up. When we get back to the hotel, write me down your flight numbers. Okay, that would be fun. I try not to let on just how thrilled I was that he didn't want to drop me when Sandy and Rhea arrived. He touched my nose, then my lips with his finger. I can't imagine anything nicer than fun with you, Polly. You're like a bottle of champagne just waiting to be uncorked. Or don't you like that analogy? I had turned away, and he pulled me back. I didn't mean to hurt you, sweet Paul. Since you haven't told me anything, I can't help blundering. He pressed my face against his shoulder gently. It was nearly 7 when we got back to the hotel. Zachary insisted that I give him the Cyprus Airlines flight number, so I let him into my room just long enough to check my ticket and write down the information for him. He was looking around the room, and I'm sure it gave him the impression that Biokeets are a lot richer than we are, but I didn't explain. He kissed me goodbye, mwah! And electricity vibrated through me, but we don't have to act out everything we feel. I learned that much. I've got to go Uncle Stanley's room. Thanks, Zach. These have been good days for me. Really good. Thanks. Believe me, the pleasure was mine. And this is not goodbye, Paul. You're not going to be able to get rid of me this easily. I hoped you would be at the airport to meet me at the end of my 3 weeks in Cyprus, but I thought I better not count on it. I rang Sandy in Rhea's room, and he answered. Polly, we arrived about an hour ago and got your message. Glad you were off doing something. Been having a good time? There was both question and challenge in his voice. Yes, I have. I met a guy from California. Did Uncle Dennis tell you? He mentioned it. I've been off sightseeing and doing things with him. Not too much, I hope? I laughed. No fault of his, but no, not too much. Ma, you sound grown up. It's about time, I said. I hope it's all right, but I went ahead and made a reservation for dinner on the roof at 9. I thought that might be easier for you. It's just right, he said. Rhea's napping, but I'll wake her up in time. See you at the restaurant. I soaked in a warm bath. Zachary had been an escape route in many ways. I could forget that Sandy was likely to ask me questions. Some of the questions had no answers, but there were other ones which I was going to have to respond to, and I wasn't ready. I felt as though a splinter of ice had lodged deep into my heart. While I was with Zachary, I was able to forget it, but now it was there, chilling me. I stayed in the tub as long as possible, but didn't thought anything. Then I dressed in the only one dressy thing I brought with me, a soft, floaty geometric print of mauves and blues and lavenders, which softened my angles and brought out the blue of my eyes and made my hair look less orange. Rhea had given it to me for Christmas, and I wore it for the New Year's Eve party at Beaulair and for Zachary when we went to the Hilton for dinner. Rhea knew how to buy clothes which were just right for me. At 9 sharp, I was standing in front of the elevator, and when I got to the roof, Sandy and Rhea were waiting. I hugged them, rubbing my face against Sandy's soft golden beard, smelling Rhea's familiar, exotic scents, embraced by them both. For a fleeting moment, Rhea reminded me of Max. They both had black hair. They were both tall. They both had fine bones. They knew how to dress, but that was it. Max's eyes were silver, and Rhea's like dark pansies. Max was thin, and Rhea was slender. Max vibrated like a plucked harp, and Rhea was serenely quiet. Max, with her acute awareness of life, was dying, and Rhea still had her life ahead of her. We were shown to a table with a good view, one of Aristides' tables. He greeted me like an old friend, and I introduced him to Sandy and Rhea. You seem to have made yourself very much at home, Sandy said. Rhea smiled at me approvingly. We're proud of you for managing on your own so well. Of course we knew you would. Sandy and Aristides spent quite a while discussing the merits of various dishes, and when Rhea said something in Greek, Aristides was delighted, repeated everything in Greek, rattled off a list of wines, and approved of Rhea's choice. It was not Retsina. During dinner, Sandy and Rhea told me that after they had visited some of Rhea's relatives, they'd been invited to tour the islands on a friend's yacht, and then they had a job to do. They didn't tell me what or where, but I was used to secrets. A lot of Daddy's research was secret, too. Rhea and Sandy were even more cosmopolitan than Max, and I was only Polly, the island girl, but I was completely at ease with them. Zachary came with the after-dinner coffee, appearing at Sandy's elbow and introducing himself. I thought you might like to see who it is who's been escorting Polly these past few days. He looked handsome in dark pants and blazer and a white shirt. Rhea invited him to sit down, and I could see they thought I'd done pretty well until Zachary mentioned his father's corporation, and something in Sandy's eyes clicked like the shutter of the camera. They switched the conversation to my job in Ossia Fiola, and the tension evaporated, and we talked comfortably. Zachary flattered Rhea without being obvious, and was politely deferential to Sandy. He shook hands with them as we parted, kissed me on the cheek, mwah, and said, "Be seeing you, Paul," and left us. Sandy laughed slightly. Your young man doesn't suffer for lack of funds. Rhea spoke gently. You can't blame him for his father. True. I'm glad you had a good time with him, Polly.